My name is Emily Carter. I am 31 years old, and I run a small asset management consultancy from my apartment in Columbus, Ohio. I am not rich in the way people imagine when they hear words like assets and filings. I drive a used Honda. I buy groceries on sale. But I am careful. I am organized. For the last 4 years I have been quietly building something real, something solid, the kind of foundation that takes patience, sacrifice, and late nights staring at spreadsheets while the rest of the world sleeps. My sister Brielle is 28. She is beautiful in a way that makes people forgive her too quickly. She has warm brown eyes and a wide smile, and she knows how to use both. Growing up, she was the one our mother called her sunshine. I was the one our mother called the responsible one. Somehow, that always felt less like a compliment and more like a job description. I want you to understand something before this story goes further. I loved my sister. Truly. Even when she borrowed money she never paid back. Even when she cancelled plans without warning. Even when she made everything about herself. I still loved her. It started on a Tuesday in March. I had been feeling off for a few days. Tired in a way that sleep could not fix. A tight pressure in my chest I kept telling myself was stress. I had a big client proposal due that Friday and I had been pushing too hard. By Tuesday afternoon, the pressure turned into real pain. Sharp and squeezing, spreading up into my left shoulder. I sat at my desk and tried to breathe through it, but my hands started shaking and my vision blurred at the edges. Called 911 myself. I stayed calm. I unlocked my front door so the paramedics could get in, grabbed my phone and insurance card, and sat on the floor with my back against the wall. At the hospital, the doctors told me I had experienced a hypertensive crisis. Not a full heart attack, but serious enough. They wanted to keep me for observation. Minimum 3 days, possibly 5. Called my mother first. Then I called Brielle. I told her to water the plant by the window and grab my laptop from my desk. She said she would handle everything. I should have been much more specific about what everything meant. Brielle answered on the second ring. She only called me Emmy when she wanted something or was concerned for someone nearby. I'm in the hospital, I said. Columbus General. My blood pressure spiked badly. They're keeping me for a few days. Oh my God. She gasped like the building was burning. Emmy, that is terrifying. What do you need? I'm stable, I said. Can you check on my apartment? Water the plant by the window. Maybe grab my laptop. I have work files I'll need. Of course, she said. Don't worry about anything. I'll handle everything. I felt genuine relief. I thanked her, hung up, and leaned back against the hospital pillow. The machines beeped beside me. Somewhere down the hall, a television murmured softly. For 3 days I slept, got tested and took new medication. I did not call Brielle again. I assumed no news meant everything was fine. That was my first mistake. The second was not defining what handling everything actually meant to me. Because Brielle, I would soon discover, had taken those 2 words and carried them much further than I could have imagined. And the worst part was she had done it while believing entirely that she was being kind. I was discharged on Friday morning. The doctor gave me a folder of instructions, new medications, dietary changes, a follow-up appointment in 2 weeks, and a firm order to reduce stress. I nodded and signed the papers and thanked the nurses. My neighbor Marcus picked me up. He was 62, retired, and the kind of steady person who kept a spare key without ever making it feel like an intrusion. I had given it to him 2 years ago after locking myself out at midnight. He had never once used it without asking. He drove me home quietly. I stared out the window at the gray March sky and thought about the proposal I had missed, the calls I needed to return, the clients I needed to update. What I did not think about was that I would need to rebuild my entire apartment. Marcus pulled up to my building. He offered to walk me up. I told him I was fine. I took the elevator to the 4th floor, walked slowly down the hallway and put my key in the lock. The door swung open. My stomach dropped hard. The couch was gone. The television was gone. The shelves on the wall were stripped completely bare. Not moved. Not rearranged. The 42-inch flat screen I had saved for and bought myself on my 29th birthday. Gone. The entertainment stand gone. The decorative shelves Nadia had helped me put up were bare, stripped of every book, every small framed photo, every piece of myself I had placed there carefully over 4 years. I walked to my bedroom doorway and stopped. The bed frame and mattress were still there. But my dresser was gone. The mirror above it was gone. My wooden jewelry box, the one my grandmother gave me before she passed, was gone. My hands were trembling. And then I heard it. Coming from the stairwell, echoing through the hallway. Laughter. Familiar. Comfortable. Completely unbothered. Brielle's voice, bright and easy. Yeah, I sold most of it already. The marketplace is incredible. You'd be surprised what people pay for second-hand stuff. The room tilted. Sold. Not donated. Not stored for me. Sold. While I was in a hospital bed adjusting to new medication, my sister had been in my apartment listing my belongings online for strangers. I stood in the doorway of my stripped bedroom and felt something inside me go very still. Not grief. Not panic. Just a cold, clear stillness that told me something had permanently changed. I stood completely still for what felt like a full minute. My brain kept reaching for another explanation. But the apartment told the truth louder than any explanation could. She had been inside my home for 3 days with a key I gave her for emergencies, and she had used that time to sell my furniture, my belongings, the pieces of a life I had built carefully on my own. The anger that rose in me was not hot and explosive. It was cold. The kind that settles in your chest like a stone and does not shift. I heard the front door open behind me. Brielle walked in, still half laughing at something on her phone. She looked up and froze. "Oh, Emily." Her smile faltered, then recovered fast. "You're back already." Ready. Like I had returned from a weekend trip. I looked at her. At the easy way she was standing. At the total absence of guilt on her face. "What did you do to my apartment?" asked. A shrug. An actual shrug. "I cleaned it up," she said. 3 words. That was all it took for me to understand exactly what I was dealing with. This was not a mistake she regretted. "Cleaned it up," I repeated. "It was cluttered, Emmy. You had too much stuff. And there was a late notice from the electric company on your counter. I was trying to help. By selling my furniture." She crossed her arms. The posture she took when she decided the best defense was mild offense. I had seen it my whole life. "You needed the money," she said. "The couch alone went for $300. You sold my couch. And the TV. The bookshelf. Some other things. I can show you what I made." "Stop." My voice came out harder than I intended. "Just stop talking." She blinked. I walked past her into the kitchen and gripped the counter with both hands. I needed to think. The doctors had told me not to spike my blood pressure again. I stood there and counted slowly. 1, 2, 3. Then I walked back to my bedroom and opened the nightstand drawer. A few old receipts and a charger. Nothing critical. But the documents drawer, the long flat one at the bottom of my dresser, was gone with the dresser itself. I checked my closet. The box of winter clothes was gone too. I went back into the living room. Brielle was sitting on the floor, since there was no couch left, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. Like she had done me a favor and was simply waiting for the thank you. "Show me everything you sold," I said. "Every listing." She sighed, the sigh she used for unreasonable people, and pulled up her Facebook Marketplace profile. I scrolled slowly. Couch. TV. The bookshelf. My grandmother's wooden jewelry box listed as vintage jewelry organizer. $45. My standing lamp. 2 dining chairs. Small decorative clock. And then I stopped. Near the bottom of her listings was something I had not expected. Watch. A men's vintage Omega Seamaster with a stainless steel bracelet and a deep blue dial. Listed for $280. My pulse jumped hard. That watch was not mine. It belonged to a client named Warren Tillis. His father had recently passed away, and the watch was part of a small estate being divided between Warren and his brother. While the estate attorney finalized the paperwork, Warren had placed the watch under my documented care, a formal arrangement called an asset custody agreement, notarized and registered with my consultancy. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Columbus area code. Answered. "Hi, is this Emily Carter?" A man's voice, cautious. "I bought a watch through Marketplace from a Brielle Carter. She said it was her sister's. There's paperwork inside the box with your company name on it. I wasn't sure what to do, so I thought I should call." My throat went dry. "What kind of paperwork?" "Yes. Says asset custody acknowledgement at the top. Your consultancy name. A registration number at the bottom." I sat down slowly on the edge of my mattress. "What is your name?" "Yes. Phil Drummond." "Mr. Drummond, please do not sell that watch to anyone else. Do not remove the paperwork from the box. I will contact you by the end of today and make this right." He agreed. I gave him my number and hung up. Then I sat in the silence of my stripped bedroom and felt the full weight of what was unfolding. That watch was a registered custodial asset under a notarized legal agreement. Selling it without authorization was not just careless. It was unauthorized transfer of legally registered property. Brielle had walked into my apartment thinking she was doing her stressed sister a favor. I need to explain this clearly because it matters. 18 months earlier, I had expanded my consultancy to include asset custodianship for private clients. Individuals going through estate transitions would temporarily place high-value items under my registered care while legal paperwork was finalized. I held the items, documented them, and was legally responsible for them until the custody period ended. Each item came with a formal asset custody acknowledgement, notarized and filed with the state. It listed the item, its estimated value, the client's name, my name, and a unique registration code tied to my business filing. Warren Tillis had brought me his late father's Omega watch 6 weeks earlier. Until the estate attorney completed the division between Warren and his brother, the watch needed to remain in neutral, documented custody. It was a clean, standard arrangement. Until Brielle found it in a padded pouch in my closet and listed it online for $280. She had sold a $4,000 watch that was subject to an active legal custody filing under my business name. Not only had she sold property that was not hers, she had sold property that was not even mine. It belonged to a deceased man's estate. I called Warren Tillis immediately. He answered on the third ring. I told him directly what had happened: the hospitalization, my sister entering the apartment, the watch being sold. I told him I had located the buyer, that the paperwork was intact, and that I would personally recover the watch and return it to him. A long silence. "Emily," he said, "are you telling me the Omega left your custody?" "Temporarily," I said. "The buyer still has it and the paperwork. I will recover it today." "This could be serious for your practice," he said. "I understand completely," I said. "And I take full responsibility. But I want you to know that what my sister did was unauthorized and fully traceable. Every listing is under her name, time-stamped. The paper trail is clear." Warren was quiet. Then, "Fix it. And we'll talk after." I said I would. Hung up. And then I felt the full weight of it. The hospital stay, the empty apartment, and now a client relationship hanging in the balance because my sister had treated my carefully documented life like a clearance sale. This was not a family argument anymore. It had real professional and legal consequences attached to it. I went back into the living room. Brielle was still on the floor, earbuds in, completely at ease. The picture of a person with nothing on her conscience. I stood in front of her until she noticed and pulled out one earbud. "Who gave you permission to sell anything from this apartment?" "Yes." "You said handle things," she said. "I said water the plant and grab my laptop." "You said handle things," she repeated, firmer. "I was helping. Bills were coming in." "You sold a watch," I said. "A man's watch in a padded pouch in my closet." She blinked. "The fancy blue one. Got $280 for it. Nice, right?" Brielle kept my voice level. "That watch was not mine. It belonged to a client. It was under a notarized legal custody agreement registered with the state. You sold property that was not yours, not mine. Property under an active legal filing. The first real crack appeared in her confidence. Her eyes shifted. Just slightly. But I saw it. I didn't know that, she said quietly. I know you didn't, I said. But not knowing doesn't undo what happened. She looked at me. And for the first time, fear moved across her face like a shadow crossing a window. I did not yell. I did not cry. I sat down across from her on the bare floor and laid out everything calmly, the way I would explain a complicated situation to a client. I told her about the asset custody acknowledgement. I told her about Warren Tillis and the estate case. I told her Phil Drummond had called because the paperwork was right there in the box with the watch. I told her that every item she sold was traceable through her marketplace account. Her name, her photo, her number on every listing. I watched her face as the full picture assembled itself. It's just a watch, Emmy. It is a $4,000 watch belonging to the estate of a deceased man, I said. You sold it for $280. She flinched. Every transaction is time-stamped, I said. Every buyer can be reached. And your name is on every listing. So what does that mean, she asked. Her voice was small now. It means what you did could be classified as unauthorized transfer of legally registered property, I said. Depending on the filing attached to that item, it can become a criminal matter. The color left her face entirely. She tried to recover. Even backed into a corner, Brielle had a reflex, practiced and deep, for minimizing and deflecting. I had watched her do it my whole life. You're overreacting, she said. I'll pay you back. I made almost $1,200. I still have most of it. It's not about paying me back, I said. Then what? You always make everything a catastrophe. I was trying to help you and you're treating me like a criminal. I recognized this moment. I had been in versions of it my entire life, standing across from my sister while she told me my reactions were too big and my standards too high. And every time before, I had eventually softened. Let it go. Chosen peace over truth. Not this time. I have a client expecting answers, I said. I have a notarized document with my name on it. I have a buyer who already called me with questions. And I have a sister who entered my home while I was in the hospital and sold property she had absolutely no legal right to touch. I stood up. I'm not overreacting, I said. I'm documenting. Her face went pale. I called Nadia that evening. She was a paralegal who worked downtown. Sharp, practical, and one of the few people in my life who never confused kindness with unlimited tolerance. I explained everything. The custody agreement, the watch, the marketplace listings, Phil Drummond's call. She was quiet for a moment. Screenshot everything, she said. Every listing, every sold item, every timestamp. Do it now before she deletes anything. Already started, I said. Good. Emily, she paused. Selling a registered custodial asset without authorization is not the same as selling your couch. That watch is the piece that changes this from a family dispute into something with real legal weight. She was right. I also called Marcus that evening. I asked if he would write a brief statement confirming what he observed when he dropped me off. The empty apartment, the missing furniture, the stripped walls. He agreed without hesitation. By that night I had a folder on my laptop. Screenshots of every listing with timestamps. Records of every sold item. Phil Drummond's contact information. Warren Tillis's custody agreement. Marcus's written statement. Evidence. Timeline. Documentation. I was building something Brielle could not smile her way out of, charm her way around, or reframe as a misunderstanding. My phone rang at 9:30 that night. My mother answered. Emmy, your sister called me. She's very upset. Her voice had the careful walking on glass tone she used when managing both of us at once. She said you threatened her. I explained the legal situation, I said. That's information, not a threat. She said she was only trying to help. I pressed my fingers to my forehead. Mom, I came home from the hospital to an empty apartment. My furniture is gone. My grandmother's jewelry box is gone. A client's registered property was sold without my knowledge. She did all of this without asking me. She said you told her to handle things. I told her to water my plant. Well, she interpreted. Mom. My voice stayed level. I'm not upset about her interpretation of a vague sentence. I'm dealing with the fact that she sold a legally registered custodial asset filed under my business name. That is not emotional. That is legal. Silence. I just don't want this to become a big thing, she said finally. Closed my eyes. There it was. The sentence that had shaped so much of my life. Don't make it a big thing. Smooth it over. Let the responsible one absorb it quietly. The next morning I drove to Phil Drummond's house. He lived about 20 minutes away. A tidy place in a quiet neighborhood with a swept porch and a bird feeder in the front yard. He answered the door in a flannel shirt, a calm man with careful eyes. He still had the watch. Still in the padded pouch. The asset custody acknowledgement folded carefully back inside the box. I wasn't sure what to do, he said. The paperwork had your company name, and something felt off. You did exactly the right thing by calling me, I said. I handed him $280 in cash. A full refund from my own account. I had him sign a simple receipt confirming the watch was returned and the payment refunded. I took his contact information and gave him mine. As I drove home, the watch locked in my glove box, I thought about what he had said. Something felt off. A complete stranger had seen the paperwork and felt enough responsibility to make a call. He had no obligation to me. He had already paid for the item. But the presence of a legal document had made him pause and act. I returned the watch to Warren Tillis that same afternoon. We met at a coffee shop near his office. He was professional and visibly relieved. I gave him a written account of the incident, the hospitalization, the unauthorized entry, the sale, and every step I had taken to recover the item. I included Phil Drummond's signed receipt and a copy of the original custody agreement. Warren read through everything carefully. You handled this the right way, he said. I handled it the only way I could, I said. He nodded. I'm not pursuing anything further regarding your consultancy. You recovered the item, documented the incident, and covered the cost yourself. He paused. What your sister did is a separate matter. I know, I said. The question is what you want to do about it. I looked at the cold coffee in my cup. Outside the window, the March afternoon had turned gray. I want her to understand what she did, I said. Not just feel embarrassed. Actually understand the size of it. Warren nodded once. Then document everything and decide what weight you want it to carry. I already had the folder. I already had the full documentation in place. Brielle came to my apartment that night without calling. She knocked 3 times, fast and urgent, the way she always knocked when she needed something. Opened the door. She looked different from the day before. Less polished. Hair pulled back. Eyes slightly red. The look of someone who had spent 24 hours realizing that charm was not going to work this time. I need to talk to you, she said. I let her in. We sat on the floor, and she looked around the bare room. Something complicated moved across her face. Maybe it was the first time she actually saw it. Not a cleared space she had improved, but damage she had caused. I talked to Mom's lawyer friend, she said quietly. He explained what a custody agreement means. He paused. Emmy, I had no idea that watch was part of a legal filing. I genuinely thought it was just expensive jewelry in your closet. I know you didn't know, I said. But you did not ask me about individual items. You did not call to check what was okay. You made decisions about my life while I was in the hospital because you decided my space needed managing. She was quiet. That is not love, I said. I opened my laptop and showed her the folder. Screenshots of every listing with her name and timestamp visible. The buyer receipts. Phil Drummond's signed statement. Marcus's written account of the apartment when he dropped me off. The custody agreement. The recovery receipt. Everything documented, in order, clear and complete. I watched her face as she scrolled through it slowly. With each page, something changed in her. The slight lift of the chin, the small armor she always wore, dropped away. By the time she reached the last document, she looked genuinely frightened. Not of me. Of the reality she was looking at. "What are you going to do with this?" she asked quietly. "That depends on you," I said. She looked up. "3 things," I said. "First, you contact every buyer you can still reach and try to recover the items. My grandmother's jewelry box especially. If that buyer will sell it back, you cover the cost yourself." She nodded quickly. "I'll try." "Second, every dollar you made from those sales, all $1,200, goes to a charity I will name. You send it directly and send me confirmation." She blinked. "Why a charity?" "Because I don't want your money," I said. She agreed to all 3 conditions. The following week she tracked down the buyer of my grandmother's jewelry box. His name was Tony, and he had purchased it for $45 to give his wife. Brielle explained the situation honestly and offered him $80 to return it. He agreed. When that wooden box came back into my hands, I sat down on the floor of my bedroom and held it for a long moment. The finish was worn in exactly the places I remembered. The tiny brass latch still caught slightly on the left side, just as it always had. It smelled of cedar and something older, something I could not name but recognized completely. Some things can come back. I needed to know that. Brielle transferred $1,230 to the Columbus Children's Medical Center. She sent me a screenshot of the confirmation receipt. I saved it in the folder. My mother called that evening, quieter than before. "She did what you asked," she said. "I know," I said. "I saw the confirmation." "Does that mean it's over?" Over was a complicated word. The furniture was still gone. The trust was still damaged. But something real had shifted. 3 weeks after I came home from the hospital, I bought a new couch. Nothing expensive. A clean gray sectional from a local store, delivered on a Saturday morning. I stood in the doorway and watched the delivery men bring it in, and something about that simple act, choosing my own furniture, placing it exactly where I wanted, felt larger than it should have. Nadia came over that evening with dinner. We sat on the new couch and she asked how I was actually doing. Not about Brielle. Not about the documentation. Just me. I thought about it honestly. "I feel clear," I said. "Tired but clear." "You handled it right," she said. "You held your ground without blowing everything up." "I almost didn't," I admitted. There were moments when I nearly let it go. Let her talk her way out. Went back to being the one who absorbs everything quietly. Nadia looked at me. "What stopped you?" I thought about Phil Drummond calling because the paperwork felt wrong. About Warren saying I had handled it correctly. About the feel of my grandmother's jewelry box coming back into my hands. "The paperwork," I said quietly. "And the things that cannot be replaced." Brielle and I did not speak for 6 weeks after the confrontation. Not out of cruelty. Not out of lingering anger. We both needed the distance to let things settle without the pressure of pretending we were fine before we actually were. When we finally met for coffee, her suggestion, she came in looking different from the Brielle I was used to. My sister had always walked into rooms like she owned them. That morning she walked in like someone who understood she had to earn her welcome back. We talked for 2 hours. She told me that after everything happened, she had spent a lot of time thinking about the pattern. Not just this incident, but the years of borrowed money never returned, plans cancelled without apology, the easy assumption that I would always be there to absorb whatever she needed. She had started seeing a therapist. She was still going. I listened without interrupting. At the end, she said, "I don't expect you to trust me right away. I just need you to know I understand now. Not just what I did, but why it was wrong." I believed her. Mostly. Trust is not rebuilt in one honest conversation. Doesn't work that way. My follow-up appointment with a cardiologist was on a bright April morning. My blood pressure was stable. The medication was working. She told me I could return to normal activity with reasonable care and reminded me to manage stress. I drove home with the windows down. My apartment looked different now. New couch. New shelves I had chosen myself, positioned exactly where I wanted them. A few framed prints, things that actually meant something to me. Not everything had come back. The lamp my college roommate gave me was gone. The clock from my first office was gone. Some framed photos of my grandmother were still in other people's homes, unreachable. Not everything lost can be recovered. But my consultancy was intact. Warren Tillis had referred me to 2 new clients in the weeks following our meeting. My quick response, my documentation, my calm under pressure had strengthened his confidence rather than broken it. And the folder was still on my laptop. I did not need it for any practical purpose anymore. The matter was fully closed. But I kept it because it reminded me of something important. Being organized is not just about spreadsheets and carefully maintained filings. I stood in my apartment one evening in late April, just before sunset. The light came through the west-facing window in long golden bars across the floor. I had a new rug, simple navy blue, one I had been thinking about for 2 years but kept putting off. It looked exactly right. On the shelf above my desk sat my grandmother's jewelry box. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. The one who fixed things. The one who absorbed the overflow so everyone else could stay comfortable. I had done it so long and so automatically that I had started to confuse it with being valued. I had been wrong about that. Brielle had walked into my home and stripped it down to the walls, and in doing so had accidentally shown me the thing I most needed to see, that I had spent years making myself easy to overlook. The watch, the paperwork, the filing, the documentation. None of it had required drama. It had just required me to know what I had and refuse to pretend otherwise. My phone lit up on the desk. Brielle. I looked at it for a moment. Then I picked it up. "Hey," I said. "Hey," she said. "Was."